You are sitting in a room right now. There is a device in your hand or on your desk that connects you to 3 billion people. You have not spoken to another human being in hours. That is not a coincidence. That is the system working exactly as designed. For most of human history, loneliness was not a condition. It was a warning signal. A brief, sharp alarm that fired when you drifted too far from the group. It was supposed to hurt. Pain makes you move. A sprained ankle tells you to stop walking. Loneliness told you to go back to the fire, back to the people, back to the only structure that kept you alive on a planet that was actively trying to kill you. The group was not optional. It was infrastructure. 40,000 years ago, a human alone on the savannah was a human with a life expectancy measured in days. You could not hunt large prey alone. You could not watch for predators and sleep at the same time. You could not raise a child, carry water, treat a wound, and remember the location of every food source without a network of other minds helping you store and retrieve that information. The tribe was your immune system, your memory, your food supply, and your early warning system. Loneliness was the body's way of saying the infrastructure was failing. And the body took it seriously. Neurologically, the pain of social exclusion activates the same pathways as physical injury. Researchers at UCLA placed participants inside an fMRI scanner and had them play a simple ball-tossing game with 2 other players. Midway through, the other players stopped throwing to them. The excluded participant's brain lit up in the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the same region that processes a broken bone. The brain does not distinguish between a fractured rib and being left out of a game. It files both under the same category: damage, threat, fix this now. This is ancient engineering. It worked for 100,000 years. Groups that felt the pain of disconnection strongly stayed together. Groups that didn't feel it drifted apart and disappeared. We are descended entirely from the ones who felt it. Every person alive today carries the neurological circuitry of someone for whom loneliness was an emergency. Then, roughly 200 years ago, something began to shift. The Industrial Revolution did not just change how people worked. It changed where they lived, who they lived near, and what they owed each other. Before industrialization, most humans lived in villages, not because they were sentimental about community, because villages were the unit of survival. You knew the people around you because your life depended on knowing them. You tracked their reliability, their skills, their debts to you, and yours to them. That tracking was social life. It was also logistics. Factory work pulled people out of those networks and deposited them into cities. Cities were dense, but not connected. You could live 12 inches from another human being, separated by a single wall, and never learn their name. The proximity was there. The infrastructure was gone. And the loneliness signal, the one designed to make you return to the group, had nowhere useful to point. It kept firing anyway. By the mid-20th century, researchers began measuring something they had not had a word for previously: social isolation as a population-level phenomenon. Not the grief of a widow or the solitude of a monk, but a statistical condition spreading quietly through developed nations. In 1985, the General Social Survey asked Americans how many people they could discuss important matters with. The most common answer was 3. When the same question was asked in 2004, the most common answer was 0. 0. In less than 20 years, the number of people with no close confidants doubled. The researchers called it a social recession. It was moving through Western societies the way a financial recession moves, quietly, structurally, invisibly, until the damage was already done. Then came the internet. Then came social media. Here is what the platforms promised: connection at scale, unlimited reach, frictionless contact with anyone, anywhere, at any time. Here is what the platforms delivered: the sensation of connection without the biology of it. Because the biology of genuine human bonding requires time, physical proximity, mutual vulnerability, and reciprocal attention sustained over extended periods. It requires, in neuroscientific terms, the release of oxytocin, which is triggered by touch, by eye contact, by synchronized breathing, by shared physical experience. A like button does not trigger oxytocin. A notification does not trigger oxytocin. Scrolling through images of other people's lives while alone in a room produces, in the brain's accounting system, something closer to the opposite. In 2017, a team at the University of Pittsburgh surveyed 1,787 adults aged 19 to 32. They measured social media use and cross-referenced it with self-reported loneliness. The participants who used social media most frequently were 2.7 times more likely to report feeling socially isolated than those who used it least. Correlation is not causation, but it is a pattern worth sitting with. What the platforms understood, and what the neuroscience of loneliness makes uncomfortably clear, is that the loneliness signal can be temporarily suppressed without being resolved. A variable reward loop, an intermittent notification, a sudden spike of engagement. These things tell the alarm system to pause. They do not fix the underlying condition. They are the neurological equivalent of turning off a smoke detector while the building is still on fire. And the building has been on fire for a while. In 2023, the United States Surgeon General issued an advisory. Not about opioids, not about obesity, about loneliness. Vivek Murthy declared a loneliness epidemic and cited data showing that social disconnection carries health consequences equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Chronically lonely individuals have a 29% higher risk of heart disease, a 32% higher risk of stroke. Loneliness impairs immune function, accelerates cognitive decline, and raises cortisol levels in ways that keep the body locked in a low-grade stress response for months or years at a time. The body is still treating it as an emergency. The body is still waiting for you to go back to the group. The group, for most of human history, was not chosen, it was given. You did not select your tribe from a menu of options based on shared interests and aesthetic compatibility. You were born into it. You were accountable to it. The relationships were obligatory, which meant they were durable. You could not unfollow your cousin. You could not mute your neighbor. You had to work it out or live with the consequences of not working it out in close daily proximity for the rest of your life. That friction was not a flaw, it was the mechanism. The friction produced depth. Depth produced trust. Trust produced the thing the loneliness alarm was always pointing toward. Modern life replaced obligatory relationships with optional ones. Optional relationships are more comfortable. They are also more fragile. The moment they require effort or tolerance or the absorption of someone else's difficulty, they can be exited. And they frequently are. What remains is a social world of enormous width and almost no depth. Ancient humans did not solve loneliness by being wiser or more emotionally evolved. They solved it by having no alternative. The structure enforced connection. The scarcity of options created the conditions for depth. What looks from the outside like a simpler and harder life was, in one specific and measurable way, a less painful one. We have built a world of unprecedented comfort, choice, and connectivity. We have also built a world in which a person can go years, decades, without ever being truly known by another human being, without anyone noticing, specifically and reliably, whether they showed up or didn't. The loneliness alarm is still firing. It has been firing, for a lot of people, for a very long time. The question is not whether we can feel it. The question is whether we have built anything left to go back to.